Hello, everybody. We are here getting ready to recap Tale of Three Letters. I'm going to plug in my phone really quickly so it doesn't die. How are y'all doing? How are y'all feeling? Oh my goodness. Let me see here. I see Jess and Cammie. Oh. Alrighty. I accepted, so... Oh.
Hello.
There's one. Hello. There they are.
Hey, babes.
Hey, y'all.
What is up?
How are y'all doing?
I'm sorry, I got distracted because the title on this live says Tale of Three Trees.
Oh, I do that. Okay, hold on. Let me just say really quickly.
Uh-oh.
There is a book called The Tale of Three Trees. It's
Yes.
a very classic book. And every single time I do that. I don't know why. I don't know how to change it. So
What are the trees in this movie? I gotta think now. Give me some symbolism going on here.
See, okay, not gonna lie, I did have that same thought too, because I'm like, Martha is smart, obviously, but like she would do something like that where she would take a classic literature and interweave it somehow. I haven't figured that one out yet because there's a lot going on. But
oh, bye, Cammie.
Bye.
We lost her. Come back.
Cammie.
Come back, Shane. Come back.
Come back. Did she just freeze or did she like completely dip out?
She's totally gone on mine.
She's frozen on mine.
Okay.
Oh. View request. Okay. Let's see if she accept. Technology, y'all. Technology. Okay, there she is.
I don't know what happened.
Neither do we.
So
anyways,
it's I mean, we've got the classic Dickens novel, A Tale of Two Cities.
That's what the title reminded me of.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of as well. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens.
Yeah, no, it was, for me, it was A Tale of Three Trees.
You're talking about the one where the three trees are turned into the manger, the ship, and the cross, correct?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh. This is a book?
Yeah. This is a book.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to read that because I have a feeling maybe there is a real connection.
It's a classic children's story.
Yeah, it's a children's
story.
It's a children's story, yeah, and it's basically these three trees are, you know, they dream of being something magnificent. They're like, I'm gonna be, you know, I don't know. It's been years since I've read this book, or that it's been read to me.
So the first one wants to be a treasure box. The second one wants to be a mighty ship, and the third one wants to never leave the mountain and point to God. So.
Well, I'll read it, and if I find something, I'll do a Substack.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, anyways, because of that book, I always mess up the title of this movie. But it relates. Trees turn into paper, which paper
mail
turns into letters. So
it works.
Okay. So
back to the movie.
Tale of Three Letters. What were y'all's initial thoughts? I'm going to start with Jess because everybody might have seen Cammie and me go live last night, and y'all saw our very real reaction. So we would love to know. Jess.
My reaction involves less gushing than I'm assuming yours did.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, you guys never gush. I don't know. I mean, I was just there ready with my mop. I was hard at work. No, but so I first watched it. It was at like 1 a.m. And then I watched it again this morning. And I loved it a lot more the second time. I think bad circumstances watching the first time. It was a little harder for me to connect to like the marriage like stuff because I'm single. but there was still so much that I was able to find, little like nuggets of truth. And I'm just like, when I watched it the second time, I was able to really start connecting the dots and like finding little things. One, I'm pretty sure I've completely fabricated, but I'm going to bring it up because I like it. We'll get there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Martha did a great job with all of these stories, and there's just a lot here. I don't want to take away because I think we need to dive into all this. But
Okay. Cammy?
uh watching it the second time through, even though I had to pause it a lot so I could get all my thoughts down. Okay, 2 minutes 8 seconds I had filled a page of
my
a front
gosh.
page notebook, and I went, oh my gosh. You know, obviously I was a little distracted last night watching with my children around and trying to live tweet. How did I miss all this? You know, when in the first 2 minutes I filled a page that I went, oh wow.
My favorite thing was how you sent a photo of you sobbing and your husband Will was in the background with like a gleeful smile on his face.
That was him taking the picture. He took my phone. I was saying, okay, I know they're gonna want to see this, and so I tried. I can't do it, and he took it out of my hand. He said, "I'll do it," and so he just put it in front of me. He smiled, and I'm still sobbing. So, yeah, that was him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I have to say that the ending is what got me the most, because the beginning is them in love, and one thing that I actually wrote down is, hey, honeymoon in style, he's rich, you know. But
I mean, he has like 15 weeks of PTO to use, considering he had like 7 weeks and something odd days of PTO in the pilot,
and
it never takes off.
Money to burn, so burn it nicely in Europe.
Yeah.
But when they,
oh no,
sorry,
here it comes. I didn't grab the tissues.
Oh, I forgot my tiny mop.
when he starts explaining all of the symbols that he laid out, and that took a lot of work to lay out everything. And I missed this the first time. Remember, Casey, when I said, why did he have the shells? It's because he didn't think he'd ever be happy again when he gathered them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a symbol of where he was to where he is now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there's the pen you borrowed and wouldn't give back to me. And then talking about how she drew the picture of Jazz, and I kept it right here until you came back to me. And just, I remember watching those movies and going, what's going to happen? Why is she going? Why is he so angry? You know, all of that, going through that journey with them. I feel like we lived it with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then the letter opener for that she gave him for his birthday, and then a yellow rose, the last rose of summer. And you married a man, I'm paraphrasing, you married a man who thinks that everything you touch turns to something sacred, but it would mean nothing if I didn't have you to share it with. And just that realization, that light bulb going on, that all of those little things, yes, they got in the way. Yes, we're in a home, not a college dorm. Yes, there are things to work out. But just like Shane said, you, Oliver, are my home, and I am yours. And figuring out that they need a house, but they already have a home. And all they have to do is make a few compromises and give themselves some time to make it work. Just like Calliope said, this is not a marriage in trouble. This is a 6-month-old marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember when Will and I had our first big fight, and it was nothing. It was about nothing, but it felt huge. And all we had to do was talk about it and work it out. And it's just
Well, you kind of answered my second question too. It's okay.
What's the second question?
Well, my second question was what stood out, but
Everything to Cammy.
Yeah. But.
It was just, that was probably one of the most beautiful and heartfelt endings I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I mean, if you really want to see my reaction, you could go watch the live we did last night that I popped on 2 minutes after, like it was ending, and I
so I couldn't get on that.
I hopped on live and just there are very few movies, including an SSD, where the whole movie like resonates so deeply with me. And I'm still I'm honestly still processing this movie.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
But I think there are several layers to it for me. When we talked to Kristen, we said, how are we feeling about the movie? And she's like, get the ice buckets. That's what I was focused on. I was like, oh, I'm gonna need ice buckets the whole movie. Okay, we might have like a little tip here and there. It's fine. And then it's all Hallmark spicy. And then when she said that she did not cry during the table read, and of course she explained some other things too with that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll be fine. I love a good wedding movie. So the last two movies, I expected myself to feel emotional. I expected myself to cry, because even in real life at a wedding, you hear a song, I'm just like, I've got tears coming down, like few tears here and there, and that's like my expectation of these SSD movies and stuff. But this one leveled up the playing field. Like it struck a really deep chord with me. I think it's because I resonate with the marital tips. I think that also recently, without getting into a whole lot of details, and in the last several years, I've just seen a lot of marriages fall apart. People that I've known very closely, people that I've associated with, I've seen unhealthy relationships. My own relationship, like my husband, we, as all marriages go through, ups and downs and roller coasters. And I think that is why it really affected me the way it did, because I wish that I had somebody to tell me these things 6 months after I was married. I think anybody would agree with that. And I think that it's important to showcase a healthy, like, how do you resolve a marriage in a healthy way?
What
and so
after happily ever after?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why I was so emotional. I mean, I don't remember cry, like, you guys know me. I don't cry like that in these movies. I mean, I'll tear up and stuff, but like I was like overwrought. Yeah, that was my reaction to this movie. Martha blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. So those were my initial thoughts and reactions.
Takeaways.
Yeah, takeaways.
While we're on the real marriage thing, one thing that Martha did, and Eric and Kristen that I thought was so good was how gradually it changed.
Yes.
For instance, the shoes on their honeymoon, he's smiling.
Yeah, it's just
on their
a simple
yeah,
kick it out of the way.
their honeymoon, he's smiling when he moves the shoes. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the song that is playing, the lyrics right when he trips over the shoes are, I can't tell you where Cinderella's magical slipper is. I went,
Really?
Oh, yes.
But so
I thought it was
what?
good.
No, go ahead.
I thought it was interesting too that when he finally like takes her dress, she had just kicked off her shoes and one of them actually hit him in the shin, and it was a girl.
Oh,
To the like final point of escalation of the shoes.
And that's probably why, because Jess, you made a really good point in our messages last night that you didn't think that Oliver would take it to a place like Fred's because he has such a respect for the past. But I think that is what kind of flipped him over the edge. You know, like, okay, I'm done. I'm taking it to the first place. Fred's a nice guy, and always wanted to work with real lace.
but the other thing with that too is Oliver has a respect for his own past. The O'Toole name, the
That's
O'Toole
true.
history, the O'Toole things. And because at the end of the movie, he asks for forgiveness for expecting her to fit into his world, vice versa. And so for him, I think it was just not the fact that, you know, whatever. I think for him, it was a logical thing. Like, I need to get this thing out of my doorway.
Yeah, out of the hall.
Yeah, like, take care of business.
So not necessarily that he was not that y'all said that he was disrespecting the history or the, you know, heirloomanization of the dress or whatever they called it. But I think it's the fact that when they hadn't merged, like they hadn't come to that space where they were understanding of each other. For him, I mean, yeah, it's a wedding dress, but it's just a wedding dress in his mind. It's not like a 100-year-old wedding dress that his
true.
great grandmother.
That's a valid point.
So,
but anyway, so on the honeymoon, he's smiling when he moves her shoes, and then they get home. And she says, yeah, but we were on our honeymoon. That's a good reason to slip up a little bit. And then she brazenly manipulates him up the stairs. That was you, Casey. That's what you said.
Was me.
And then when they go to work, are you sure we have to deliver that? I didn't hear that. You know, and then just gradually, little by little, you know, it goes from joking to frustration to anger. It was so gradual throughout the movie, and I just went, brilliant.
Yeah, because isn't that how it always works? It starts out small, you don't think you need to address it, and then you just sort of build up this sort of resentment. And I think that was like my biggest takeaway from this movie was, well, like two themes, but they sort of go together. One being the sort of theme of apologies and forgiveness. We saw that with Shane and Oliver, as well as with Maria and Mrs. Philpott. Then the fact that, you know, a lot of times people don't want to like ask for forgiveness or apologize or all that stuff. Like they feel like they don't need to go, well, this person did this and blah, 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 whatever. So that idea, as well as when Shane says, I wrote it down so I don't mess it up. She was talking about her wedding dress when they were at the counselor, and she said, I just thought I needed to hold on to it. And sort of this connecting of idea of how we sort of needlessly hold on to certain emotions like resentment or frustration. And I just kind of liked how all that was woven into this story a lot. Don't cry!
I've passed my bucket to Cammie today. I cried all my tears last night.
And see, I didn't cry first, but I think I'm crying more. the more we talk about it, the more everything is hitting me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens when we do these deep dives, you guys. I've been, you know, throughout the rewatch, I've gone back and I've listened to some of our recaps of the movies and the episodes, and I go, dang, we're deep. You know?
Deep.
And,
Deep.
and I just thought, oh my gosh, look at all of these things that we have gleaned from this beautiful thing that is quote unquote strictly entertainment.
Yeah.
You know? And so now we start talking about this newest one that we are still processing. We don't know it like the back of our hand, the way we know a lot of the others. And so we're still feeling it out. And so now everything's hitting me a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Well, that's like the brilliance of Martha. She lays these nuggets, and you can watch it 7 times and get like 7 new things from it.
Every time.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I do have one like mini deep dive that I want to share. I'm pretty sure I fabricated. I thought I saw something. I don't think it's really there, but I want to run with it because I like the connection I was making with it.
We'll help set you straight if you fabricated it. We'll help change it around so it fits. You know?
So when I watched it the first time, I had this inkling that I kept seeing the number 9. And I think it's because we see Oliver's outside of his house twice, and the number's 9992. And then the ending with the clock is also 9 o'clock, the very ending scene. And I kept thinking, okay, is there a significance with the number 9? And I was thinking, okay, Martha, Oliver, biblical, what are biblical, significance of the number 9? And so it made me think of the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit. And that's from Galatians, and it's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I was like, it's like right there. That's the blueprints to the marriage. All your fruits right there that you need to make that marriage successful. And I was like, I don't think the 9 was like dropped in that way, but I just liked where I went with that. So look for the number 9. Maybe there's more and I missed it. Oh, and Shane put 9 scoops of sugar into Oliver's coffee.
I was wondering if one of the two of you counted, because I was like, oh wait, how many was that? So I'm glad you counted.
I also counted 9 kisses in this movie.
So maybe I'm onto something. I need to know. Okay, like, am I making this up?
When I counted 9 kisses, it was also midnight, so I was slightly delirious. So we might need a fact check on that.
So
but
I tried to count on my rewatch while I was taking notes, but I was so distracted by all the notes that I had to take and rewinding and pausing. So I'm going to watch it all the way through and get an actual kiss count, and then I will. I'm big on kiss counts lately. I won't share that.
You? This is very out of character.
Why? There's no other show that, or movie, or series that.
Okay,
like
you be
one.
quiet.
So one other point that resonated with me is the fact that with this movie, I can see how some people would be like, they're not understanding of like, oh, but it's just the crank, or it's just the window, or it's just the whatever. But it was never about the crank, the broken crank. It was never about the wedding dress. It was never about her shoes everywhere. It was the fact that both of them had expectations for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
That is the underlying theme through this movie.
And wanting the other to change to fit them.
Right. And I think that really hit me the second time I watched. Like, I knew it in my head watching it the first time, but when I watched it the second time, it like really just hit me right there. Mm-hmm. With the expectations. And when he reads 1 Corinthians 13 and pauses because he realizes like there's that theme of asking for forgiveness, and both of them realizing that they're both selfish in their expectations.
We are very much ourselves is what Shane.
Right. And so marriage is never about yourself. And if you constantly make it about yourself, you're going to have issues. Mm-hmm. Marriage and love is a sacrifice for the other person. And I think that's another thing that people fail to remember, whether you've been married for 6 months, 6 minutes, 6 years, 60 years, but
I had to do no, I'm 6.
But I think that, you know, regardless of when you get married too, like for me, I got married right out of college. For Shane and Oliver, they got married years after, where they were living separate lives essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still that same deep rooted issue of human nature and being selfish and wanting to put yourself first and not the other.
Yeah. And that's one thing I think I really appreciated about this movie was the realism of the conflict. You know, because you watch all the other Hallmark movies, it's always something like super dramatic, like, oh, you lied to me. Or, you know, I don't know.
Right. Like,
something...
oh, I heard that you said you were going to sell my great aunt uncle's farm.
I saw you hug someone in the parking lot.
It's always the misunderstanding, right? And not that, I mean, this is in a way is misunderstanding too, but it's so much more real, and it wasn't resolved in like, with this, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like the way it was dealt with was so much more realistic, so much more relatable than what we normally see.
It was the underlying, like the why behind the frustration. You know, it wasn't the shoes. Like, who cares about the shoes? That's just like,
I care about the shoes, Casey. I do.
Oh yes, I saw the shoes, and after the 6 months, and I went, oh gosh, she's gonna hate that.
This movie just solidified that I am Oliver, because I was like, those shoes were driving me nuts with him. I was like, pick up your shoes.
They were driving me nuts.
Yeah, and
they were driving me nuts.
How many shoes are laying around the front of my house? So.
Look at your shoes, Casey. I can't rest until you do.
What I want to say one thing before we leave the objects, you know, because we were saying it's not about the objects, but one thing that I really noticed, especially the second time through, was that even though the crank didn't matter to Shane and the dress didn't matter to Oliver, one thing that I really loved about both of those situations, when the crank broke, what did Shane do? No. She recognized that it was important to her husband. She even told Arthur, the repairman, my marriage is riding on this. and
marriage, family heirloom.
Yeah. The wedding dress did not matter to Oliver, but when he realized that it was Fred's cleaners that was on fire, the look of horror on his face, knowing that his wife's wedding dress was gone, was blatant. So, you know, they still had work to do. They still had the opinions. It's just a crank. It's just a dress. But they knew the significance to the other. So you gotta give them kudos for that. Even when they're struggling, they know their spouse well enough to know that that was important to them, and that was something they treasured. So,
and I like how it comes full circle in the end when they realize, yes, these things are important, but it's not about the dress, and it's not about the crank. It's about each other.
Exactly.
So it really is a full circle moment there.
They go to each other instead of to the stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
Also, did you notice the progression of their counseling sessions? Where like the first one, he's sitting, she's pacing. Second, they're on opposite ends of the couch, and then third, they're sitting together on the couch.
I did notice that. Yep. That was
I really
the first things I noticed.
like the subtle details.
Yeah. Will was one of the first ones to say it out loud. I noticed it, but he said, oh, look what they did. I said, oh, I'm so proud of you, sweetie.
You know, speaking of counseling and the marriage and stuff, the one thing I noticed right away is how Oliver is the grandfather clock.
Yes.
Because he is reminded multiple times by the therapist and by Norman, well, what's the worst that will happen when the clock runs down? And for me, how I interpreted all of that, because he says in the very beginning, he's like, this has been in my family for 100 years. I couldn't imagine letting it, like it's on me. I gotta make sure that this thing ticks. And I think that, you know, the therapist calls him out and says, you put so much pressure on yourself. And I think for him and the clock, it's a symbol of, he has put so much pressure on himself to, you know, work for the USPS, have a fantastic marriage like his grandfather, make sure the O'Toole name goes strong, you know, all of these things. And so he's putting this pressure to wind the clock, and I've got to do it very much like clockwork. And then you got Shane here who just you know, disrupts everything essentially, and then it's almost like he doesn't know who he is. It's like the timer is ticking down, and I think it's that fear of like, okay, if the clock runs out, then what happens? Like, is it gonna explode? Is it gonna like fall apart? Am I gonna? And I think that's for him. It's what is this gonna look like if he fails? But we all know, you know, he's a good man, loving husband, he's reliable. He's got all of these things. He just, sometimes I don't think Oliver sees it in himself. I think that he's so much of a perfectionist that like one small error is like the end of the world. Like the whole Charlie situation. She's like, I just put an alarm clock in this, and he like went ballistic.
Yeah.
But I think there too with that one is there was an underlying subtext with when he and Shane said federal offense versus, what was it? I wrote it down. A federal offense versus an accident or something like that. And I'm like, that's a symbol of what's going on right now. Like, Shane's leaving her shoes around, and that's a federal offense to Oliver, you know?
Yeah.
So there are just so many things that are so complicated and layered in this movie. Like, there's just so much here.
So with the little stuff, this was something that I noticed, and it was funny because even people in my watch party were saying it the first time around. Did you guys notice that every time Shane is seen messing with the window, she's got long sleeves on?
I didn't notice that.
When she is saying it's warm in here, let's open a window, she's got long sleeve pajamas and a long sleeve robe. Now, the robe wasn't adding much of a layer, but still, you know, it was all long sleeve. And then the 6 months later, she's in the white jacket. When she goes up to take her nap and she's trying to get comfortable on the bed, she does not take off her jacket. And so I kept on saying, if you're warm, take off your jacket. And where are the fans in this house? You know?
Yeah, where's the ceiling fan? But, you know, the Historical Society may not have approved ceiling fans.
I'm wondering.
I did have that same thought about her laying there with the blazer. I'm like, girl, take your blazer off.
Take the blazer off. Yeah.
That goes to show.
She's got baby brain. She's not thinking straight, guys. Come on.
But I think that also goes to show that she did not see it as her home. Yeah, the shoes thing, right? Like, you kick off your shoes. But, like, I think that was just, like, symbolic of how she felt being in that house. Like, that was her security blanket.
Yeah, she had to keep close.
Yeah, because like she said, it's your house, Oliver. It was all him, and nothing was, like, hers. And it felt very stuffy and preserved.
Yeah. I married a museum.
A human antique comes with the museum.
We've got two now. First, she's married a human antique that's in a museum.
Yeah, that's where the antiques go, right?
That's true.
That's right.
Can we talk about Rita and Norman for a hot minute? First of all, I was actually surprised that this was very Shane Oliver centric. I mean, I knew that like a couple days ago. I think somebody had, maybe it was Kristen who said it was Shane Oliver centric. For some reason, I was thinking it was going to be maybe more half and half, like some of the past movies. We didn't get a whole lot of Norman and Rita in this movie again.
Yeah.
But the moments that we had with them were super impactful. And I think that it is interesting that even though Norman and Rita are only 10 weeks ahead of Shane and Oliver, technically.
Old married.
They're like an
old married couple,
kind of coaching them through the relationship. Like when Rita calls out Shane and says, "Did you say sorry to each other?" "Yeah, we did." "But did you ask forgiveness, or did you forgive each other?"
Yeah.
And there's a long pause. Like Rita and Norman have grown so much since the pilot, because in the pilot, and even going throughout the first 10 years of this series, they're very much timid and very much like, okay, whatever Oliver and Shane say or do, we'll do it. But this one, they were not afraid to speak up. And I think that also goes to show like how wonderful and how strong of a friendship both couples have with each other, because you need people to speak truth into your life. You need somebody to call you out and be like, okay, well, I get it, but at the same time, like, there's another thing here, like the forgiveness thing, that is deep. Like to call your friend out on her relationship and be like, there's a little bit more here,
Yeah.
And for Oliver, I really loved it when he went to Norman and said, "I could use your advice." And I swear I've got to write an article or something with this title. Personal or postal?
We have a Substack. You can use it.
That was like one of the secondary themes of this movie, personal or postal.
Postal, that's exactly what it was. It was personal or postal. But when Oliver says, "I have been your mentor in many areas of life. Now the pupil is the teacher." And he was asking Norman how to get through this hump in their marriage. And if we want to keep going on that, just backtrack. But I just have to say that while Norman and Rita seemed really, really confident in their advice to Shane and Oliver and really confident in their marriage, what I loved is that Martha still gave them something they needed to work on. Norman was putting all of his time into taking care of baby Eleanor. Rita was feeling pushed away, held back. They can't start their own family because Norman won't finish the essay, and they can't do this, and Eleanor this and Eleanor that. And she is gently encouraging him because she's learned how to talk to her husband. But she says, maybe it's a good thing for us to go and see a therapist to figure out what we can do. And it just, I really loved that the experts in the situation were still not shown as perfect. Because I think that's something that happens a lot is first the story is about them, and then they get married and look at them, they're perfect. But there was still something to work on with Norman and Rita. And it showed not as much, like you said, Casey, but there was still an area to grow in and a way that they can fix things and improve. Just and he saw it, and he saw it, and he fixed it, and they were so much happier because of it.
I know it was a source of tension for them, and it wasn't like, obviously it was something he needed to work on, but I also still found it so endearing how devoted he was to Eleanor. Like, he is just so ready to be a dad and give his love to a child. Like, I don't know, I just loved it so much seeing him, even though I know it was like he needed to, focus on Rita too.
No, you've got a point. You've got a very big
point. We're just like, Norman. Like,
yeah, because it's, like you said, it's Norman. I mean, Norman. Yeah, speaking of Norman, Martha commented on our post with Norman and Oliver, and basically said it was a beautifully shot scene by Eric and Jeff. And oh my word, like this is where the tears happen. Now, I didn't go full on sobbing, but the tears did come to my eyes, and they did like fall a bit. But again, it goes back to that beautiful friendship between Oliver and Norman, and how Norman is comfortable kind of encouraging Oliver to pursue, because he did this again. He did this before in Higher Ground. It was Norman that sought out Oliver, and Norman told Oliver, hey, I know what I'm going to do about my situation. What are you going to do about it? And he calls him out, and he's like, you know, you're hurting right now because of your fear. Like, what are you going to do about this? And then this time around too, obviously we didn't see what was happening. We don't know when Oliver left, but at some point he realized Oliver wasn't there. He saw Oliver out. He was the one that said, where do you go when you need comfort? And she's not gone. She just needs
not like
some air, you
Holly.
know? And
she has no plans to leave.
Again, I mean, Norman has had such a dynamic growth, and I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah.
And he looked, this is going to sound so trite, so please forgive me, but I can't figure out the best word to do it. He looked so mature. Mm-hmm. He looked so grown up, and experienced and wise, saying, she's not gone. She just needed some air. Mm-hmm. And then asking Oliver the thought-provoking questions. Where do you go? Mm-hmm. And I found it so ironic that Shane says, and here I thought you didn't know me at all. But, well, technically Oliver said it. You know? Norman was just helping him find the answer.
Connect the dots a bit.
Yeah.
But I went, Norman made that discovery. Oh boy.
So I have a question for you two. Did you anticipate there to be so much tension in this movie? Like all the marital tension?
No.
That took me by surprise.
I had my ice bucket ready, y'all. I was like, I got my bucket right here, you know, like full of ice, like.
I thought there was going to be, I knew that there were going to be humps to go over, but no, I did not expect this much tension. Mm-hmm. Like Kate, I kind of clung onto a ton of PDA. I'm like, you know.
But we needed it. You know, we needed the whole.
For Hallmark, it was a lot of PDA. I mean, like,
it was
in a movie. But I also think too, we know the Hallmark brand so well that in our minds we're thinking like, oh, it's just Hallmark, right? Like, you know, there's not with Martha's an exception, but your typical Hallmark movie is just like, oh, we had a misunderstanding, oh, we kiss, we make up, it's all great.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas this, and even on the series, many of the series, Chesapeake Shores, The Way Home, One Calls the Heart, you don't often get the layers of emotion, depth, conflict, like not escalating so sharply and then going through the hills and valleys, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was not anticipating there to be that much. I will also say too, and maybe this is just from my own perspective being married, I mean, I feel like they did a nice climb up to the escalation of their fight. And then from there, it kind of just like tapered off. Like, yes, they were still arguing about certain things. And then, you know, so to me, it wasn't as maybe jarring for me personally.
It wasn't jarring. Go ahead, Jess.
I don't think it was jarring. It just kind of caught me by surprise because we had tension in the vows as well. And I guess maybe thinking of the Hallmark brand, I was ready for like happy marital bliss, and it just caught me off guard. And I was like, go back to the happy place, go back to the porch swing.
Well, that was the problem. It was in the garage.
I know.
They didn't bring out the swing.
You need to get around to it. How often do we hear that?
But I think in the vows, though, the conflict was Oliver. Like, he imparted his own conflict, and Shane was
his insecurities.
Yeah, Shane was patiently waiting. Yeah, she kind of did snap at him and she was like, it's fine. But that was it. This one, they were like, and the rest of us are like Norman and Rita, like,
I know, they were like the MVPs of trying to like diffuse and distract. Who's hungry?
Are you hungry? No.
Nope. Not even for the clams.
The fact that
Is that like a new level of
clams are
Oliver's like emotions? Like not even hungry for the clams?
And she offered to cook it.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the problem.
Can I ask y'all about Norman and Rita's road to a family, with the adoption and the baby with the congenital heart defect? That scene too got me in my feels. Like when it was,
started crying. Actually,
it was when Oliver, for me, it was the moment Oliver said to Norman and Rita, basically like, are you afraid that it's the wrong baby or you're the wrong parents? Mm-hmm. And that right there, I mean, just knowing Norman and Rita and how they are and how they've been and how they desire this family and just their sweet nature and how they take care of Eleanor and Tick and Charlie and all these things. And I'm like, and then also Kristen Booth is like in the corner there sobbing as Shane. And I'm like, when Shane cries like that, I can't help but cry.
You're so connected to Shane, Casey.
I am so connected to Shane.
That moment, it was a moment of levity when Will was looking at the bingo cards that we made, and he said, "Does that count as Oliver's speech?" And I said, "That," because he kept on saying it a few times. I said, "Nope, that's not a speech. Nope, that's not a speech." And then I said, "That was an Oliver speech," because that was changing the perspective, bringing new information to light, and giving that beautiful advice that Oliver is so famous for to someone who needs to hear it. And it made it even more poignant because he had been the one seeking advice before, and now he feels confident enough to share and impart his own advice, and then impart his hanky to his wife. I love how it was such a presentation. You know, he took it out, and you know, I couldn't keep my eyes off of that. He just took it out, and there you go.
It's such an Oliver thing to do.
It was. I just, that when I'm watching, that's when I started. That was my first picture, Casey. When I started to get misty-eyed, was when Oliver was showing them that they could be a family. And Shane immediately recognized when something was wrong and reached out instantly. She said, "There's something wrong. Reach out. What is it?" Mm-hmm. So both of them, in the way that they are so famous for, did exactly what needed to be done.
Yeah.
Shane reaches out immediately to comfort. Oliver sits back and listens, and then imparts his wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The four of them truly are lightning in a bottle.
Oh my gosh.
And I think it's just even more so now. I mean, there was a 3-year break, but it's like no time had passed at all. And I feel like even in spite of the break, they came back even stronger. And knowing the fact that they had a block shoot for this, and they had to, like, there was just a lot going on with trying to film both movies at once. Like, yeah, I would have never known. I mean, they are just amazing at their craft.
Yeah.
I'm blown away, honestly.
No, there was nothing lacking. There was nothing lacking.
Yeah. One other thing I want to touch on, because we do have like 8 minutes before we hit an hour.
Yes.
So when we did our preview show, I asked a little question about whether or not y'all thought that Shane and Oliver would have a baby if we get some Sholiver baby.
Well, we were wrong.
We were wrong. We were completely wrong.
all of us here knew as soon as Shane said, I feel
I'm tired.
tired.
Yeah, so
And you know what? Going back and watching it the second time through, there was kind of the pattern of tiredness at the beginning. And I went, oh, Martha was trying. I just grabbed onto that. You know, she said, I need a nap. I'm like, she's pregnant. But
I know, I dropped that in the chat as soon as I watched that too. It's like, she's pregnant.
But the second time through, I went, oh, Martha's trying to show us a pattern of being tired. Whoops. Yeah.
Because she even mentioned jet lag before then. I didn't connect that one. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
what was funny for me is like I was texting with Natalie, one of the other postables, and I was joking, like, you know, we've speculated on the shawl over baby situation for years at this point. Years.
Yeah.
We've had discussions about this, Natalie and I. And so like I'm kind of jesting, like when she said she was tired, we're like, oh, she's probably pregnant. I didn't know that I actually believed it at that point because
Like a red herring?
yeah, I was kind of, yeah, I'm so suspicious. But when Shane, and also, so then, you know, again, more speculation because we see the previews and I'm like, okay, well, the sonogram part, like maybe Shane was, I don't know, maybe she was getting back. Still think it's Rita. But when it was shown that Rita was the one that handed the sonogram, I was like, oh, well, it's probably just as I expected, going to be a little Norita baby. So when Shane looks across the street at the pharmacy, I screamed.
Oh, sealed the deal. Completely sealed the deal.
Screamed. Like, y'all don't even know. When I find out my friends are pregnant, I go bananas. Like, please get earplugs because I will scream and then I will cry. Like,
I yelled, she's pregnant. And my daughter said, how do you know, Mom? I'm like, okay, I need to explain this. That sign means a pharmacy or a drugstore. So, yeah, had to explain it, but yeah. Well, okay, really quick. We've done some really deep stuff. Can we just go totally superficial for just 1 second and laugh hysterically at that beginning scene in the plane?
So very Oliver.
That poor man. Will said, yeah, she fell asleep right away. She's the smart one.
Yeah.
And I said, no, honey, if she were awake, she would have stopped him.
she would have engaged him in conversation.
Exactly. Poor man. He didn't get to say anything about himself, and oh, the time flew right by.
And how long is that? So I know from Charlotte to London is like 8 hours,
and then go past Charlotte to Denver.
Long flight
to Denver. Well, I know East Coast to West Coast is like 6 hours or something like that. I think New York to LA, I think is 6 hours. Is a 6 hour flight or 5 hour flight or something like that. It's long.
And then go past it.
Yeah. So
yeah, that oh my gosh, that guy had such a tiny part, but he added so much. Oh, 10 hours, Maria says. 10-hour flight.
Hours.
So that added so much to the beginning of the movie just to set the tone and to have a little bit of levity before it got serious. And then when he tried to get the attention of the flight attendant and then just walked past like, oh. And Oliver is so oblivious.
He's living high on life. I mean, the man is like,
he was blinded by love.
He was so, because that's Oliver. I feel like Oliver gets social cues, right? Like he would have enough like knowledge to know, like, all right, probably should shut up right now. But he was just high on love.
Not coming home from his honeymoon.
So really quickly, last thoughts, real quick. What are our predictions for To the Moon and Back? Now that we have seen A Tale of 3 letters.
Babies everywhere.
Babies.
Nicole wants to know if we think there's a time jump. Like this movie. This movie had a 6-month time jump.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to have a time jump inside the movie like they did with this one, but it would not surprise me. I'm not going to say I'm betting because I'm not going to do that because I never know with Martha, but it would not surprise me if they jumped to the 3rd trimester or so that because I would love to see pregnant Shane and Oliver trying to deal with that, but I don't want too much of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
so,
it makes sense.
Yeah, because I want the story of the babies, but I think that the movie might start to with a time jump of maybe 7 months or something like that.
I was thinking if there was a time jump, maybe it would be like the baby was just born.
Oh, no pregnancy.
Yeah, that was my thought, but I also didn't think they were going to be pregnant.
I'm trying to come up with a new theory now. You know?
I feel like sky's the limit, honestly. I mean, I feel like there has to be some type of a time jump because we want that baby.
Yeah.
We want that baby to come out. But my thought was if they did it, they could do kind of like how they did One Calls the Heart, where Rosemary was pregnant and then the next season she was like about to burst essentially. Right. So they could do it similar to this movie, how it picks up right after, because then we can see Norman and Rita's reactions. They can try to resolve a letter and then have a time jump after, and then she's just like 8 months pregnant. Yeah. I did joke though about how since we know that they're going to be out of the DLO quite a bit for this next movie, that Shane will deliver in the Star Cruiser. Not that that's actually going to happen.
I remember you saying that, and I went, "Oh, please no."
I mean, Norman's like, "I got this. Uncle Norman to the rescue. Got the Star Cruiser."
Guys, Nicole just said, "I'm just excited to see them as parents and Joe as a grandfather." Can you imagine them breaking the news to Joe? Guess what?
It's gonna be so
He's gonna be so happy.
Oh, he's gonna be such a great grandpa. I forgot about that part. And Ramon, he's like,
speaking of Ramon, we need more Ramon. He was there for like 10 seconds, but had like the most iconic line. Marriage is like a salad bar.
No, I think the more iconic line was a fortunate mix-up.
Very true.
No, I think they're both iconic. But yeah, I did kind of miss Joe and Ramon in this movie. We just didn't have them as much.
Yeah. And Hazel was mentioned, but she was not seen.
Right. I thought that at one point, because they always go to Joe for advice, but Joe didn't give them advice this time. Mm-hmm. He gave advice to Charlie. He gave advice to Charlie. He said, "Go for it." So, we got the bingo square that Joe gives advice, but
I called a lot on our bingo squares. We got quite a bit there.
I was so proud of us.
Yeah.
When the shoes were on the floor in the first 30 seconds of the movie, I laughed hysterically. But never mind about that. But yeah, Joe didn't talk them down. Mm-hmm. Joe, they had a professional do that, which, I see where they went with it, and I liked what they did with it. But I thought, nobody confided in Joe that there was trouble. And I mean, maybe Oliver did off screen when they were polishing their Dark of Night awards together.
Yeah, which is interesting because in the past, Joe has been the one to give Oliver advice with regards to Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Final thoughts on this movie before we end this live?
I have myriad thoughts about this movie.
Oh, yes.
Myriad
Do
or
tell.
myriad of thoughts, Jess?
Myriad. Because the word comes from some language meaning 10,000. That was my
And I have
my little lookup of today. Thank you, Google.
many nouns going through my mind right now.
I did love that scene. Just like Oliver. Love a good grammar debate.
Oh, oh goodness. Okay. I need to go back and watch this movie again. That's
How many times have you watched this so far? What's our count for everybody?
I was only able to do 2 because
Same.
I had
I got a late start.
Casey.
3.5. I watched it twice last night. I watched it again this morning, and then I watched like half of it on and off right before our live just to.
Okay.
So yeah,
I have to tell you, I tried to watch it for the second time last night, but I woke up, the TV had gone off automatically, and my computer was on my lap. That's how I woke up. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I need to go to bed.
Oh goodness.
Oh, goodness.
This movie, y'all. I think that, listen, we have a Substack. I think we should use it.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
should jot down our thoughts.
I want to continue my deep dives.
I think there's a lot of deep dives to be shared here. I think that this movie in particularly, I think that it reminded me why I love this show so much and why I love this series so much. Like, I knew that, obviously. We have a podcast all about Signs Still Delivered.
Wait, we like
but
Signs Still Delivered?
What is that show? But I think because of the 3-year break, and because we recapped it, we watched, it's like life has moved on since we did our initial iteration of the podcast. And so I don't know, I think that this movie reminded me again how much I so appreciate Martha's amazing weaving and her stories and the complexities, and how Signed, Sealed, Delivered is not just another Hallmark show. Despite what anybody else wants to say about it, like, I will stand there and debate you. But I think that it just once again shows, like, this is the type of content that we want, and this is the type of content that we need. And I really hope that they keep making these movies, because we like the fluff and we like the lightheartedness, but I personally like the deep diving. I like going deeper into these characters that we love so much, and I am looking forward to seeing them grow.
And that's what makes it enjoyable to keep rewatching, because you can keep making those connections.
Eric is here. Hi, Eric.
Oh, hello.
We're just gushing about this movie.
We've had a couple of thoughts on how you played your character.
Myriad thoughts. I'm going to keep going back to that word.
A myriad of thoughts.
No, myriad thoughts.
Oh my goodness. But yes, it was a beautiful, beautiful movie.
It spoke. It spoke real life. It spoke lightheartedness. It spoke romance. It spoke fixing problems. It spoke real life. It gave us hope.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in Home Again. What's in the box? Hope. This movie can be, oh gosh.
Oh no. Mop, I'm here.
This movie can be a source of hope. This movie can be a source of hope for people in a myriad of situations. It can give them something to hold on to. It can give them ideas. It can give them a sense of peace. It gave us a piece of real life that is so obtainable.
Yeah. And the underlying theme of forgiveness, I think anybody can resonate with. I think that, even if you're not in a relationship, or, if you're single or whatever the case may be, I think that anybody watching can see that if you're struggling with something, it's okay to ask for help.
Yes.
I think that's another theme that really resonates, because I think, as human beings, sometimes we're scared to be vulnerable with each other. We're scared to reach out. We're scared to, like, what are people gonna think? What are they gonna see? And I think that that's another takeaway from this movie is, like, hey, go seek out help if you need it. That's okay.
Yeah. And not being afraid to just say, I'm sorry. And saying sorry without also still blaming the other person. Because a lot of apologies, yes, but you did this and made me feel like this. And I like that they both just recognized their own fault and said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
All right.
What a lovely note to end on.
What a lovely note to end on.
A lovely note on which to end.
Oh my gosh. That was inexcusable of me to end my sentence with a preposition. Tammy, I'm sorry.
Maybe you do have a little Oliver in you, Cammy.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
All right. How would you rate this movie?
I don't know.
Let me, instead of 5 stars, how would you rank this movie against the rest of Science? Like, top tier, bottom tier,
either.
For me, I think this is my new favorite. I for a while, I think Higher Ground was like number 1 for me consistently, depending on my mood. But Higher Ground consistently was like the thing. This one, like I said,
To the Altar has been my favorite consistently. But I mean, one of the things is I don't know this one well enough yet. I gotta go back and get more acquainted with it, So, but right now, if I were to give it something out of 10 compared with other SSDs, I'd probably go 8.75 or 9. It was beautiful.
I don't know how I'd rank it. I don't think it's the highest for emotional response because it's me. But I think as far as like the lessons and like the Martha nuggets, which is what that's always what I'm most excited for. I think that it's pretty high there.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Maybe if I get married someday and I'll rewatch this and I'll just be a blubbering mess and then I'll just like understand everything.
We will hold you to it, Jessica.
We need to be right beside her, one on each side, Casey.
We're holding her up.
The mop finally needs support.
The mop cannot stand by itself. Anyways, on that note, love you guys. We will have to come back. We didn't even talk about the letter story.
No, we'll do that again. We'll do that another time.
But love y'all. Let us know in the comments when we post this video, what did you think about the Tale of 3 Letters?
Yeah, and if there's anything you want us to like talk about or deep dive for you or with you,
give us ideas, because we're here for it. We are so excited, and there's another movie coming out, so we hope to bring you guys more content. Yay!
Yes, we have lots to look forward to still.
Alrighty. Bye, everybody.
Bye, folks.